Welcome to Permission to Thrive. I'm your host, Suzi Lula. As a spiritual therapist for over 20 years, I have the honor and privilege of ushering women and mothers just like you on a journey from simply surviving to powerfully thriving. I also have the honor of raising our son, Will, who is now a young adult, with my longtime partner, Jamie, so I'm right there on the journey with you. Consider this your personal sanctuary, your space to meet your heart, embrace your messy, and come home to your most authentic, extraordinary self. My hope is that you leave resourced and inspired because you are here to shine. Welcome to Permission to Thrive. I'm so excited about today's solo episode on thriving and abundance. In today's episode, we dive into the real meaning of thriving and abundance and prosperity and wealth, and how you have 100% dominion to calling that into your life. We talk about how wealth and wholeness and enoughness is your natural inherent state. And I talk about how your receptivity and expanding your capacity to receive is your portal to more wealth, to more luminosity and radiance, to a richer quality of life than you could possibly imagine. I talk about giving yourself permission to let go of any of the ways that you have been conditioned to think that you need to sacrifice yourself, to martyr yourself, to deprive yourself of any good that is here for you. I remind you that there is more than enough for you to thrive and everyone around you to experience abundance as well. So sit back, relax, maybe get a cup of tea, immerse yourself in this permission to thrive from the inside out. Enjoy, everyone. Hi, everyone. There is nothing that I like more than talking about thriving and abundance, inspiration, creativity, infinite potential, infinite possibilities, the infinite nature of wholeness and enoughness. So this is what we're going to be speaking of today. I'm so excited to be sharing with you a little bit about my own journey and also to be offering you some real principles and practices that you can take today that will shift your inner experience of thriving, abundance, prosperity, wholeness. So let's dive right in. First of all, what I mean by thriving is that it is an inner sense of well-being in the midst of whatever is going on in your outer world. Thriving is an inner sense of well-being. And the word well-being means wealth. So think about it. To think that I have dominion to thrive, that I have dominion in my own inner state to know that I am wealthy, that wealth and abundance and prosperity and inspiration and creativity and enoughness and wholeness and worthiness is inside of me, is within me, and it has nothing to do with my external situation. So thriving is an inner sense of well-being, wealth, in the midst of whatever is going on in your outer life. Thriving and abundance are an inner state of being. When you think about yourself, or you think about an infant or any young child, you will see that we are all born with a sense of joy and awe and wonder and infinite capacity. There's nothing limited about us. It is only when we are conditioned to think that we are lacking, to think that we are not enough, that our sense of who we are changes. But we are born into a state of consciousness, a state of awareness. Although we may have forgotten it and not be in touch with it, our natural state is this state of wealth, of more than enough, of divinity, of worth. And that is what we are seeking to come home to today. So when I think of thriving, I think of blossoming and flourishing, radiance, vitality, luminosity. I think of a rose bush or a field of flowers. Think of a forest and trees. When we think of thriving, we often think of nature, and nature is absolutely abundant. What fascinates me even more than the rich colors or the vibrancy of the field of flowers, the radiance, the luminosity, what fascinates me even more is the invisible. What causes those roses to bloom and blossom? What causes that field of wildflowers to be so radiant? So we go to the invisible, we go to what we can't see. We know that when a rose bush is blooming, it is often because of a rich root system. And we can't see the root system, but the root system is rich. We know that it is rich soil, fertilizer, water, sunshine. We know that it is the environment and the atmosphere that causes something in nature to be in full bloom, to be in full blossom. And it is the same with us. It is when we learn how to create habits and a way of being with our inner state, our inner life, that we cause ourselves, that we cause our life to blossom, to flourish, that we can cause ourselves to be living in a rich inner state, to have a really rich quality of life in the midst of whatever is going on in our external world. And what I have come to know in working with so many thousands of clients and students is that every single one of us, although we have been taught by culture to seek the external, the achievements, the career, the finance, yes, that is wonderful. What every single one of us is ultimately seeking is a rich quality of life, the qualities of relationships that are connected, that are real. We need only look at someone who is passing over, who is ready to make their transition, who is dying. What they look back on the most with regret is not living full out from the inside out. And so when we look to what we have been taught by culture, culture teaches us that thriving and abundance is external. Culture teaches us to look to the external. Culture teaches us to look to what an individual has achieved, how successful they are, how much money they have in the bank, where we went to school, what their job or career achievements have been, where your children go to school. A measurement would be your child's external behavior. We are so taught to look to the outside as a reflection of our inner state. We have it backwards. What I'm suggesting is that we set an intention today to be willing to shift the paradigm, to say that when I become committed to finding and seeking and connecting to my own sense of worth and value and abundance and prosperity from the inside out, then I can guarantee that my outer life will then thrive, because our outer environment is reflective of our inner atmosphere. So culture teaches us to look to the external as a measurement of our achievement and success. And so I think that we all know, I certainly know in my practice, many clients who you would look at and think are outwardly successful, clients who literally have Academy Awards and Grammys on their shelf, CEOs of very successful companies, executive coaches. And I've come to know that those outer achievements aren't necessarily reflective of an inner state of wealth. a rich inner quality of life, a connection in their relationships with their children, with their spouses. Perhaps they feel like they have to chase that next Emmy or chase that next career promotion. And they're always in a state of surviving because they're thinking that they're needing to chase that next external marker. And so I'm wanting us to leave here today feeling inwardly empowered, because the external world is a reflection of your internal world. So when you can create an inner state of wealth and harmony, peace and connection and anchoring in your own sense of worth and divinity and enoughness, you are free, you are liberated, and your external world will then reflect your inner world. That is also why I've worked with individuals, and perhaps you can relate to this. Perhaps this is reflective of your life right now. I've worked with individuals who might be going through a messy divorce, who might be walking with their child through a challenging situation in their child's life, who might be walking through their own health diagnosis and are feeling very rich and full and connected inside. You know, my own son last year was going through a really challenging time, but my own inner sense and my own connection with him was intact, was connected. And I've always sought to have the inner connection because I was raised in a somewhat dysfunctional family. And although my mom and dad were self-made and they were amazing, actually, they manifested very well and they were great stewards of their money. But what I always saw was a disconnect between the external presentation, the way we presented ourselves, and the inside, what was really happening both behind the doors and also inside of myself. Although I saw a certain level of abundance and material wealth around me, inside of me, I felt lacking. And my mom never really gave herself permission to revel in her own sense of abundance. She also lived in a sense of lack. And so therefore I lived in a sense of lack. And it became my mission. It became my highest intention to know my own inner sense of wealth, to know my own inner sense of worthiness, to know my inner sense of abundance. I wanted that inner sense more than I wanted anything else. And so I can tell you, step one is to take dominion over your inner sense and to begin to be aware that your inner state is not connected to your outer state. To make your own inner state, your own inner consciousness be more important to you than anything in your external world. What do I mean by that? If your child is going through a transition right now or a challenging time, or if you happen to be a parent and you're moving through a transition time between the end of the school year and summer, perhaps you are seeking a promotion in your career and you have outer goals, whatever it is that is in your outer world right now, seek to disconnect it, to cut the cord, and know that you have an inner dominion to create an inner sense of wealth and blossoming and richness and fullness. And if and when you create that inner sense, it will then shift and transform your outer experience. So when my son was going through a challenging time, yes, at first I went into an energy of worry and concern. Of course, I want him to be thriving. I want him to be experiencing well-being. And what I quickly learned is that I have no control over anything in my outer world, but I have 100% dominion over my inner world. And so it is very counterintuitive when you're going through something messy in your external world, it's very counterintuitive to give yourself permission to thrive. If you have been given a medical diagnosis, if you are in debt, seeking to make a career change, joy, wealth, prosperity, abundance, unlimited expansiveness. It is counterintuitive to give yourself permission when you might be going through an external challenge. And what I am telling you, though, it is exactly your inner state that will then influence your external state. So rather than looking to the outside and giving your external world so much power, today, give your internal self more power, because you have more power than you can possibly imagine to then influence your external state. If you are going through a challenge with one of your children, if your children are teenagers, adolescents, and you're going through a challenge with them, I can unequivocally tell you that when you take dominion over your inner state, you have such power to then influence your external state. It's why the root system fascinates me the most, because when you have a healthy root system and you are connected inwardly to a source and an energy that is infinite, that is unending, that you can draw upon and lean into, that is going to significantly influence your external state. And then secondly, you really want to speak about this quality of receiving, of receptivity, because as well, we have been conditioned to be givers, to do for others, and that is wonderful. I am of high service in my life and seek to be an instrument and a channel of giving and service, absolutely. But we have been conditioned to give to the detriment of knowing what it is like to receive. And so again, I go back to an infant, a young child. When you think of an infant or a young child, they are unabashed. They are unapologetic about their capacity to receive. A child can receive. When you think of a young child, or you think of a puppy, you think of an animal, and you think of the capacity to love a young child, and you think of that young child, they have a capacity to receive your love in an unlimited way. A puppy, you think of a puppy is unlimited in its capacity to receive love, to receive connection, to receive joy. Same with a child. A child is unlimited in its capacity. You cannot love a child too much. You cannot express enough joy, enough connection with a child. They will lap it up. They will receive it all. This is your natural state. I want you to hear this. You have only been conditioned to limit your connection, your relationship with wealth and good and receptivity. Just like in my family, I witnessed my mom not being able to give herself permission to experience the good that she created. She created all this good, and then she couldn't give herself permission to experience it. There was always a cap, always suppressing, always a pressing down of the amount of good, of the amount of abundance. It was always limited. We were conditioned into constriction, or I took that on. And so you, to whatever differing degrees, culture has conditioned you, or your own family of origin has conditioned you away from your own innate, inherent ability and capacity to receive. So right now, let's take a moment. I want you to think about yourself. You were once a child. You were born 1, 2, 3 years old. Before you were conditioned, within you, there was no filter. There was no limitation. There was no boundary in your capacity to receive. So begin to recognize that whatever limitation you put on yourself, whatever ceiling you put on yourself right now, it is self-imposed. Ultimately, all limitation is a self-imposed limitation. Let me say that again. Ultimately, all limitation is a self-imposed limitation. So I saw my mom limit her capacity to receive good, and then I internalized my mom's inner inability to receive and experience good. So that became a self-imposed limitation. And so now I practice getting in touch with my own inherent sense of worth and wholeness and abundance and prosperity and good. And I recognize that by taking responsibility to say that the only limitation to my good is a self-imposed one, that gives me the dominion to create something different than what I have seen. So is everyone with me on that? When you take responsibility that you may have taken it on from culture, you may have taken it on from your family of origin. My mom took it on from someone. My mom always felt like she wasn't enough in her dad's eyes. And so her sense of not enoughness carried on. My mom was salutatorian at Columbia University. My mom did amazing, extraordinary things, but she felt not enough. Perhaps you can relate. I can certainly relate. I've done amazing things in my life, and I've yet felt lacking, felt not enough. So when you recognize that you may have been indoctrinated by your own family of origin, or you may have been indoctrinated by culture, to whatever degrees that you have been indoctrinated, you have then internalized this indoctrination, and therefore your own limitation inside is self-imposed. You have created your own ceiling. It feels so solid, it feels so real, but there is tremendous liberation and freedom when you recognize that it is self-imposed from the inside out, because your natural state is limitless. In your own early natural state, you were connected to your own state of abundance. And until someone told you that you were lacking, or suggested to you that you were powerless or limited, you knew yourself to be boundless. You were in touch with the infinite potential and possibilities within you. So the question now becomes, how much good are you willing to receive? How much good can you allow into your everyday experience? So just like any child doesn't limit their amount of laughter, they don't limit their amount of joy. That is your inherent state. But begin to ask yourself, how do I limit the amount of joy that I allow myself to experience in a day? How is it that I do limit the amount of laughter that I experience in a day? Begin to ask yourself now and look for in your everyday life ways that you limit your own experience and capacity to receive good and experience joy and laughter and expansion. Just begin to look for the small, subtle ways. I can remember when my son was young and we'd be driving home from school and we'd be in these great conversations, or we'd be playing great music in the car. And my mind would then go to homework and dinner and responsibilities and grades, and I'm still in the car. We're listening to an amazing piece of music, and I have imposed a sense of limitation by thinking about something that is lacking rather than staying in that state of joy, and how much more good would come into my evening had I been able to give myself permission to stay with the experience of joy without limiting my own experience. Is that making sense? And so by beginning to look at the ways that culture has conditioned you to martyr yourself, to sacrifice yourself. Culture has taught you, don't experience too much good, don't experience too much joy, put a cap on it. Give to others first. Do for others first. Do for others to your own detriment. Actually, the definition of the word sacrifice means to make sacred. So we are actually here and meant to be generous with each other. Any one of you who is a parent, you will know that you will sacrifice for your child. You will sacrifice. I will go to the moon and back for my son. I will absolutely sacrifice. But there is a massive difference of sacrificing from the truest sense of the word sacrifice, which means to make sacred, rather than I am sacrificing to my own detriment. So culture has conditioned you to sacrifice for someone else to your own detriment. And I am telling you that the real definition of abundance is that it is unending. There is no either or. There is more than enough for you to take care of yourself and take care of your child. Take care of yourself and be true to your job and to all the requirements of your job. To be true to yourself and give to another individual. When you recognize that culture has taught you to give to another to your own detriment, but the natural state of nature is infinite and unending. There is infinite abundance. So we have to learn to step into the willingness to know that things are not finite. Yes, there are finite hours in a day. Yes, there is a finite window of hours, but the quality of those hours of a day is infinite. The quality of your time is infinite. The quality of your relationships is infinite. It is the quality of a life that makes a life. So first of all, are you willing to bump up against what culture has told you? Are you willing to look culture in the eye, look your family of origin in the eye, and say, although I have been taught self-sacrifice I will make no more? Because self-sacrifice is self-abandonment. And when you are abandoning yourself and when you are not being true to yourself, you will be in a state of lack. And conversely, when you are true to yourself, you will place yourself into a presence and a state and an atmosphere and an energy of true abundance. So first of all, we need to be willing and courageous enough to say that I do not believe that this universe would have me come in and be in relationship with a child or want to have a thriving career, want to be in the fullness of my life and need to sacrifice my life for it. This universe has set us up to have a both and experience. I do not believe that the benevolence of this universe would have me have a child and then sacrifice myself in order for that child to flourish. What I have come to know unequivocally is that the more I thrive, the greater abundance I experience, the more my son will flourish, the more he will thrive. So I am emphatic about taking care of myself, making sure that I am in an abundant state of inner consciousness, because that is what he will receive from me. That is what I will model to him. And there is nothing more attractive, more powerful than modeling to someone else your own inner sense and inner state of abundance. So if you are willing to question culture, question your family of origin and say, I am here to be true to myself, self-abandonment, no more. And then you begin to look for the small, subtle, or large, not so subtle ways that you limit yourself from experiencing and receiving good. So we always start from inside of ourselves. We always start with the inner. So begin to ask yourself, how might I be limiting my own inner sense of self-love, my own inner sense of gentleness with myself? How might I be limiting my own self-acceptance? How might I be limiting my own sense of compassion? How might I be infusing my consciousness with such self-judgment, limiting beliefs, self-shaming, that I am robbing myself of an inner experience of love, of joy, of inner connection, inner peace, inner calm? So perhaps today, your step is simply to say, when I am judging myself, I am in lack. I cannot be in self-judgment and abundance at the same time. I cannot be in self-shame and prosperity at the same time. I cannot be in self-shame and joy, self-shame and expansion, self-shame and worthiness at the same time. So perhaps you're starting today with an inner commitment to accept yourself more, to let go of the judgment, to experience that inner state of being your own biggest supporter, your own biggest cheerleader, your own biggest connector inside. Perhaps you are in a place where you are allowing yourself to receive a little more. Let's each ask ourselves, how can I be slightly kinder to myself today? How can I be more accepting of myself today? What is the next small, loving thing I can do for myself today? I always have flowers as much as I can in my home. What is the next kind thing I could say to myself? So I want each of you right now to think of one kind thing and then say that one kind thing to yourself right now. I want you to call forward something that you actually truly appreciate about yourself right now. Maybe it is listening to this episode, something that is real that you can appreciate and accept and feel compassion inside of yourself right now that is real for you. And then I want you to begin to think of, what can I receive today? What can I allow myself to receive today? Can I allow myself 10 minutes after this podcast is complete to sit and be present with how inspired I am, how these small changes can make a massive difference in my life? Can I give myself 5 minutes to be today, to create space in my life? Can I give myself the space to go take a hike outside? Can I give myself the space to maybe clean out a desk drawer, to clean out a closet, to let go of things that are weighing you down? Perhaps it is, how can I give myself permission to simply be today? How can I create 5 minutes of spaciousness today? What is it that you could receive, could allow yourself, give yourself permission to receive today? I know that for me in the past, it could be something as simple as giving myself permission to paint with William when he was little, rather than rushing to go begin to cook dinner, to play with him outside in the backyard for 10 more minutes, to watch him dig in the dirt for 10 more minutes before going to fold the laundry. The time that I have given myself over the years to be with myself and to be with him or Jamie is time that is priceless. I will always appreciate that, because giving myself the time allowed me to connect more with my inner sense of abundance. There have been larger things that I have allowed myself to receive. I have allowed myself to redo our kitchen, or give myself permission to invest in myself or spend money on myself, take trips, go to beautiful places, spend money on myself that typically I wouldn't have. I would have spent money on Will or Jamie, but not myself. That money and time that I have invested in myself, that I have allowed myself to immerse myself in, it's always given me exponential expansion, exponential results have come back to me, exponential expansion of my own consciousness. I've never regretted for one moment the gift of time, the gift of financial investment on myself. All of it has come back to me exponentially expanded. So what can you gift yourself, small or large? That next small thing, or maybe there is something larger that you are being called to commit to, and begin to see that you are meant to receive more good than you could possibly imagine. So as we close, I want to recap that you internally, inherently are worthy. You are abundant. You are prosperous. You are unlimited. There is no limitation except what culture has taught you. There is no limitation except what has been imposed upon you. There is no limitation except a self-imposed limitation on what your own inner capacity is to receive. And so moving forward, set your intention. I am willing today to allow myself to receive a little more today than I was willing to receive yesterday. I am willing to allow myself to receive a little more good, a little more time, a little more abundance, a little more joy. I am willing to receive more joy, more good, more inspiration. I'm willing to read one more chapter of a book. I'm willing to listen to 3 more songs today. I am willing to listen to a piece of music without allowing my mind to go back into what I need to do and the constriction that that will bring. I am willing to pick one flower today. I'm willing to look at a photo of myself and speak kindly to myself today. I am willing to bask in my relationship with my child today for 5 more minutes without interrupting that with what we have to go do or how he's not behaving in the perfect way. I'm willing to find the ways that I am enough exactly as I am right now. So before we complete, call forward one thing that you are taking away with you, one takeaway, and then maybe one more takeaway. And then maybe be willing to DM me. What is your takeaway? Write it, share it with someone. Maybe share this episode with someone who you know would like to expand their life, experience more of a rich quality of life than maybe they've ever experienced before. Have your takeaway, allow it to be present in your heart, keep it present this week. Give yourself permission to thrive this week until we come back together. I promise it will change your life. Much love, everyone. I hope that you are leaving inspired and on fire to experience more abundance, wealth, wholeness, divinity, enoughness, and a richer, fuller quality of life than you could have ever imagined for yourself. And if there is something in this episode that has touched you, I hope that you will share this episode with someone that you would like to see thrive and experience more abundance and more good in their life than they could possibly imagine. Share it, spread it. I also hope that you will leave a 5-star review and subscribe, because your subscription will not only have you never miss an episode, but it will assist us to have this message of thriving spread to those who need it. Thank you. Much love, and give yourself permission to thrive this week. Thank you so much for listening. If there was something in this conversation that spoke to you, we'd so appreciate it if you would take the time to subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share this episode with women and mothers you know, because you are here to thrive. See you next time.